We're going to do a few more practice problems related to this, and then you guys are going to work on a little assignment. So this is slope and equation practice. We're going to look at that point-slope form again, and I'm just going to write those formulas up on the top for our reference. So again, we're looking at the slope formula, which is essentially just rise over run, but when we're taking 2 points and trying to find the slope between them, we're subtracting the two y values, so y2 minus y1, and we're subtracting the two x values for the run, so rise over run. The y value difference is the rise, and the x value difference is the run. And then our point-slope form, again, is y minus the y value for a point equals the slope times x minus the x value for the point. And so let's start off with finding the slope of the point right here, and then we'll use the point-slope form in part 3 and 4, numbers 3 and 4. So here's our 2 points. We're going to find the slope between them. So we're going to take and subtract the y values first. So I'm going to take the second y value minus the first y value. And then we're going to subtract the x values to get our run. So we're going to take the second x value minus the first x value. And on this problem, that works out to 7 over 6. So our slope is 7/6. In the next problem, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take our x and y, x2, y2, and the first thing is we'll subtract the y values to get the rise. So that's going to be 7 minus 5, the second y value minus the first y value, and then the second x value minus the first x value to get the run. So -2 minus 1. And then do that subtraction. 7 minus 5 is 2. -2 minus 1 is -3. So in general, that's just -2/3 is my slope between those 2 points. So now we're going to write the equation for the line that contains those points. So we're going to use our point-slope form. And so remember, our point-slope form is y minus y1 equals the slope times x minus x1. And for the point-slope form, we need the slope. So we already figured the slope for these 2 points back in number 1. We know that it is 7/6, so we're going to put that in there. So 7/6 is my slope. And all I need now is a point to go in the x1, y1. And all you need is one of these points. So you can either use the 2, 3 or the 8, 10. And so let's just say we're going to use the 8, 10. So remember, a point has an x value and a y value. So the y value for that point is going to go in this spot. So the 10 is going to go here. And then the x value for our point is going to go in the x1 spot. So the 8 goes here. That's all I need. It just says to write the equation in point-slope form. And I don't have really anything to clean up here. I don't have any double negatives or anything like that. So this is good enough. This is my point-slope form. I could have used the 2 and the 3 as well, in which case the 3 would have gone here and the 2 would have gone here. But it actually gives me the same equation in the end, same line. So we're going to do that same thing for the problem number 4 using the slope that we came up with, because notice it's the same points as we used in number 2. So once again, let's just write out that point-slope form. Now, I write it out first and then erase as I substitute the numbers in. If you don't want to do that, if you can just start substituting in right from the start, that's fine. So I think this method works kind of good if you have an eraser. This works out kind of nicely because you can see exactly where things are going. Okay, so we're going to put the slope in for the m value, because that's the slope, so the -2/3 goes here. So here's our slope. And then we have this point or this point. I like points that are all positive personally. I could use either one, but I kind of like positive numbers whenever I can use them, then I do. So I'm going to put the x value for a point. So remember, this is x1, y1. So I'm going to choose the x value for a point, put that in the x spot, and then the y value for the point, put in the y spot, and that is now my equation. Once again, I don't have any double negatives here or anything that I have to clean up, so that is my equation. Okay. Down the bottom, we are taking the equations. And by the way, in the point-slope form, you may have noticed is that what you see in the point is +1 and +5, but since the equation itself has subtractions in it, you notice that in the equation you see a -1 and a -5. Same thing here. The point was 8, 10, and in the equation you see a -8 and a -10. If it had a negative sign, then that's when we had that double negative. So if you think back to what we were just doing on the problems on the last page, when we did have the double negative like here, then it changed into a plus in the equation. So you'll notice basically what you see in the point is sort of always the opposite of what you see in the equation. You see a -1 in our point, and you see a +1 in the equation. You see a +5 in the point, but you see a -5 in the equation. And that is because the equation itself already has the minus signs. So if you add another negative to it, then you get that double negative, which changes to a plus sign. Okay, so remember that when we have some problems going forward, that what the point is sort of the opposite of what you see in the equation. Now this says put it into y equals mx plus b form. All right, so that means we're going to need a y-intercept, and we're going to need a slope. All right, and in first problem here, I've got a y-intercept of +3, and then I have to find a pretty point, calculate my slope. It looks like I've got another point here, so if I do my little slope triangle, notice that my line is going up, so I've got a positive run, positive rise, and my run is 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and my rise is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my rise over run is 5/4. My slope is 5/4. My y-intercept is 3. So my equation is y equals 5/4 x plus 3, since my y-intercept was 3 and my slope was 5/4. Same thing in number 6. We're going to need our y-intercept point, which is -2, and we need to calculate the slope. So I have to find another pretty point here, maybe right there. So if I look at my, just change my y-intercept and put it on the other side here so I can make my triangle more easily. So again, line's going up, so I have a positive run, positive rise. My run is 2, my rise is 3. So as a rise over run, my slope is 3/2. So that's my slope. And my y-intercept point was -2. So my equation is y equals 3/2x. You could say plus -2, or you could just say -2. When you add a negative, that's just the same as subtracting. So there's our equation. So those are both review questions because that was just the intercept form. In number 7, it's kind of the reverse. Remember, just like you did on your quiz, let's take a look at what we know. First off, there's our y-intercept of -2. And there's our slope of -1/5. And I'm just going to put the negative with the rise, and the +5 will be with the run. So -1/5 means from my point, from my y-intercept point in this case, I rise -1, so I go down 1, and I run +5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, then we'll make a nice line between those points. Okay, and so now I have my line graphed. In number 8, notice that the equation now has moved. Instead of the intercept form, it is point-slope form. You should recognize this is in point-slope form. And remember, my point-slope form, I automatically know my slope is equal to 2. My slope is 2, because that's the number in front of the parentheses is always my slope. And I just have to now interpret these numbers here and here, because that gives me my point. Remember, the one with the x is my x value for my point, and the one with the y is the y value. Remember what I was saying a few minutes ago. The number you see here is going to always be the opposite of what the point is, because the only way, the original equation has minus signs, so the only way this could have been a plus is if this was a -4. So what you see here in the equation is sort of the opposite of what the value for the point is. We see a -1 here, which means that my y value is +1, because the equation already had the minus sign in there, and then I just put in a +1. So the point that we're using is -4, +1. We'll graph that point first. -4, +1. So that's the point. And then I will use my slope. Remember, my slope right here is 2, or as a rise over run, that would be 2 over 1. Remember, I always put it over 1 if it's a whole number. So from my point, I rise 2 and run 1. I don't have a y-intercept that I'm told, so I have to use my point. Y-intercept is a point, but so is this point that we have here. So rise 2, run 1, and you can continue that pattern if you want. But once you have 2 points, then you can draw in your line. So go ahead and then draw in that line. And we are finished.